Nelson Mandela song, Ikalafa by Namfusi and the Lucky Charms. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. Our guest for the hour is Ronnie Kasrils. He was former top military official under President Mandela, was in the ANC Executive Committee for 20 years, also served as the Minister of Intelligence under President Mbeki. I want to turn back to a rare televised interview. It was with Nelson Mandela when he was already in hiding. It was in 1961.
We have made it very clear in our policy that South Africa is a country of many races. There is room for all the various races in this country. There are many people who feel that it is useless and futile for us to continue talking peace and non-violence against a government whose reply is only savage attacks on an unarmed and defenseless people.
That was Nelson Mandela in hiding in 1961. Ronnie Kasrils, can you talk about the conditions on the ground, why Nelson Mandela and so many others got involved in the underground to fight apartheid? And also, as you mentioned, his arrest, the role of the United States in that arrest, the role of an infiltrator in the CIA.
Yes, well, of course, if you were of any colour in South Africa other than pink, white pigmentation, any shade of colour, which meant mixed race or people of fairly even light brown complexion, who were termed coloureds, right through to indigenous black people or African people, as well as the Indian or Asian people from India who had been brought in under British rule to serve in the sugarcane plantations in the middle of the 19th century. Malay people who had been brought in by the Dutch during their colonial period several centuries before, bringing in slave labour out of the Dutch East Indies. You had, with apartheid, out of colonial repression and exploitation, with the worst aspects of British rule in relation to that, tempered to some degree by the missionaries and their churches who had helped to provide a bit of education to a black elite, such as that which Mandela and others actually came from. You moved then to the 1948 period where apartheid proper was in power. The National Party was elected to power. This is the Afrikaner Extreme Party, that then set about imposing very rigid race laws, scores and scores of them, regimenting people according to their colour. If you were mixed race or Indian, you were second-class citizens. If you were black, you were absolutely third class. And this was segregation on a grand scale through the legislated laws of the country of the time, based to quite a degree on Nuremberg laws of race and race determination, and it was living in an absolute straitjacket in ghettos for the various people, in organised labour system, into the mines and the farms, where you served as absolute menial, almost slave labour for the most pitiful wages and the most dreadful conditions. With white South Africa, of course, living the life of privilege from which I came. So in that sense, what motivated people, you were motivated by the oppression, the exploitation that you experience on a daily basis. And the indignities, the enormous dignities of colour discrimination, which of course were hand in hand with class exploitation. But we should always bear in mind that the discrimination according to race and colour, those are 1,000 slights and cuts a day. That's humiliation. And back set up by a police state to regiment people, to intimidate people, to deal with anybody who raised their voice, who put a foot wrong. So South Africa was living in that police state, and the motivation then, as referred to, was clear, but you had to be able to overcome your fear. You had to stand up and get onto your feet. Your conscience is what played that role, whoever you were, if you listened to it. And this is what drove the likes of Mandela and Sisulu and Govan and Mbeki and Moses Kotane and all these other greats, the Albert Lutulis of South Africa. If you were white like myself, you towed the line and you enjoyed the privilege. You might wring your hands if you had a bit of a conscience and you looked the other way. But there were a few of us, like the Helen Josephs and the Joe Slovos and the Ruth Firsts, names that you Americans know well, who couldn't live with a conscience that basically would allow you to turn away. So we were drawn in by this movement, which was repressed, which was underground, and if one was lucky or fortunate enough, like I happened to be, through having a relative who'd been in the Communist Party, when Sharpeville struck, and it shocked me, as it did so many others, to the core, I was able to determine that I would listen to my conscience and I would follow those who led by example. And you see, those 2 points, I would say, are crucial to Mandela and any leadership. People of conscience, people who lead by example, that pulled me in. And in no time, I was, as I've already indicated, very, very involved with clandestine activity and even part of the armed struggle. And I guess I progressed so swiftly because as an athlete, as someone with particular skills, and regarded as being a little adventuristic, and you need young people who are prepared to do things. There were many Indian, coloured, black youth like myself. I was lucky to be drawn in under Mandela into that early Umkhonto weSizwe, those early units.
I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for watching this report from Democracy Now!, your daily independent global grassroots news hour. We don't accept advertising or corporate funding, but rather rely on donations from viewers like you. Please make your contribution by visiting democracynow.org today. We need your support today to keep bringing you this hard-hitting, in-depth reporting.